So, the claim that I'm responding to is the individual avoidance of the flu vaccine is harmful to the health of society. And my opponent gave 2 points. He started off with the history of the flu vaccine, or of the flu, and then he talked about how not getting the flu shot puts others around you at risk, and as well as yourself. So my first response to the claims are, I have 4 responses total. My first response is that his arguments were not set up as arguments, they were just lists of information. And there was, my second response is that there was some irrelevant data that didn't really help his argument at all. And the third is that there were many hypotheticals that were not based in evidence specifically, so we can't really consider them evidence towards his argument. And I have my own conclusion that we can draw from to counter his point afterwards. So back to the first point, the arguments were not set up as arguments, just lists of information. So the secondary claims were not stated as arguments, but just information. Not tying it to any argument, they also lack the evidence to back up any claims that they may have attempted to warrant. Yeah, it's pretty self-explanatory. Moving on to my second point, there was irrelevant data that did not support his argument at all. He talked in the beginning about how 50 million people died worldwide because of the flu outbreak of 1918. However, and then he connected that to the recent outbreak of 2009, in which 576,000 people died worldwide. However, in 1918, there was no flu vaccine. So whatever connection that could be attempted to this data can be seen as irrelevant. Moving on to the third response. In the speech, my opponent stated that there were multiple hypotheticals, such as if the mother was pregnant and she got the flu, there was a chance that the baby could also contract a syndrome that could lead to deafness or heart problems. However, there was no evidence given for this, so it is largely baseless and does not actually help support his argument at all. Moving on to my last point, I can draw another conclusion that we can get from the argument, and that is that according to this WebMD article, they say with proper hygiene and health consciousness, one can prevent the spread of flu. Walter Stam, MD, professor of medicine at the University of Washington in Seattle, says the most important thing you can do is to wash your hands frequently, clean your hands for 15 seconds, cover your nose and mouth when you cough, and avoid close contact with other people. We can surmise from this that it is possible to avoid the flu vaccine and prevent yourself and still protect yourself from getting the virus, and that in turn would help spread the virus to other people. That's all.
All right, Henry, the clearest part of your argument is at the beginning where you in essence say that the first supporting claim is really not making any inference, that there's not an argument here. I think that I understood the claim, you're challenging the premise from the very beginning, but then you don't tell us, well, what was lacking in the advocate's statements. What inference either would have made it argumentative or what does it not have that fits into the category of argument? You basically just give us your claim and don't explain your claim. You say, well, it's self-evident on its face. Well, you could point out, for instance, he gave us data about the number of flu cases. He gave us data about the availability of the vaccine. But what he didn't give us was any reason to believe that the vaccine reduces the total number of flu cases, or that a shortage of the vaccine being distributed influences the number of flu cases. And that, I think that's the inference that you want to be going for, but you need to make that inference. And as it is, I didn't think that that was as clear as it could be. So I know what your premise is, but I don't know why you think your premise is a valid one. The challenge to the 1918 data is a little confusing because, again, there's not a response to the response in this situation. But if we were having a debate, the first answer I think that would come from the other side is, yeah, we didn't have a flu vaccine in 1918, and 50 million people died. In 2009, when we did have the flu vaccine, only 500,000 people died. Yeah, there's a reason why the flu vaccine is pretty important. And your challenging of the evidence being old and not being applicable ignores potentially what the argument was that was being made here. I don't know that that's what their argument was, but that's a way to treat it subsequent to the response that you had. So I think you need to be a little bit clear. The best argument that you had was the one that you have at the end, which says we don't need the flu vaccine to prevent the spread of the flu. We just need proper hygiene techniques, and we've got a whole bunch of those things. Wash your hands, cover your mouth, avoid having close contact with people during the flu season. Those things are not hard to achieve. In fact, here are examples of hundreds of people who do those very things and haven't had the flu for 10 years or something like that. I think you could use a little bit more information on that point, but that was the one place where you had a source citation. And, of course, the Porky Pig exit is not really the best and most graceful way to finish off your speech. So try and, come back to the point, the proposition, and say the advocate has simply failed to prove their point. Okay, thank you.